Alright, hey. Hi everyone, my name is Anthony, Anthony Greaves, and this is a stumbling block of the heart. I've had to do this video a few times now, trying to figure out some recording stuff. Let's just say, first time for everything, right? And we're getting there. It seems like as soon as you're starting to get to something, that's when all the archons and authorities start kind of trying to mess up your stuff. That's what I don't know. I'm just making some shit up. A stumbling block of the heart. A reinterpretation and retranslation of Leviticus 18:22 and 20:13. Here, right here, we have and with a male, not you shall lie, as with a woman. It's an abomination. Now, I looked into this originally after some prayer. I'm turning away from a church that I joined really after being turned away from God for quite a long time. And coming to Joy Church, it had been, it felt like at first like I was coming to a place that could be home. But the pastor ended up doing this sermon about, well, he called it Love is Love, or is it? And it's what you would expect from a Christian church now, what most Christian churches views about homosexuality. And I had some issues with it, major issues with it. And I couldn't go to that church anymore. I had to do a little searching. And so I asked God for guidance and wisdom, clarity. And He guided me to this thing that I'm going to be showing you here. It's a pretty big deal, I think. You see, when I started reading into the actual verses in the Old Testament that a lot of Christians use to discriminate against homosexuals, regardless of the fact that the New Testament says that we're not under the law as Christians, and we're under faith in Christ, but whatever. A lot of Christians seem to forget that. When I started looking into this, I discovered this. Mishkab Ashisha. Now, Mishkabe Ashisha. Shakab Mishkabe Ashisha. Notice two underlined words, right? Both of them are nouns. Noun, noun. This one right here is a verb. Shakab is a verb. Mishkabe is a noun. Ashisha is also a noun. Let's look at them real quick. Shakab is a verb which means to lie down. Mishkab is a noun derived from shakab, which means a bed or a couch or a place of lying down. And Ashisha is a noun which means a woman or a wife. Actually here. Right here we see Mishkab, right? The word that they translated as with. Mishkab is a place of lying down. It's a couch, an act of lying down. From shakab, a bed. Figuratively or abstractly, sleep. Now, they created a euphemism of carnal intercourse. Like an act. But, as far as I can tell, it's not a verb. It's always been a noun. There's actually 46 uses of the word and mishkab. Of those 46 uses, 7 of them are translated as verbs instead of nouns, right? We're going to be looking at those 7 today. And we're going to be looking into how these translations may have been translated the way they did and why they may have been translated the way they did. And I have links on here to show any of this stuff. Unfortunately, for some reason, when I try to go to links on here, or click on them during this presentation, it stops recording on my Windows game thing. So for now, we'll just use what I have on the slides, but know that I do have all of these, all of this stuff is here available to be looked into. Possible reasons for mishkabe being translated as a verb. Now, as far as I could tell, I think the only reason it could be translated as a verb is based upon this concept of the Hebrew double verb. In order to create emphasis in Hebrew, sometimes they will use a double verb, such as in Exodus 21:15. It says, "And he who striketh down his father and his mother shall surely be put to death." Here, you see muth muth, death death. They use it to show how assured, how he's definitely going to die. It's really putting emphasis on that. You are really going to die. This is some bad kind of death that you are going to get, right? If you kill your mother, if you strike your mother or father. So as far as I can tell, this is the only reason they have for translating shakab, mishkab, ashisha as lying down in the lying downs of a woman, which is what they've done. Lying down in the lying downs of a woman. Shakab, mishkab, ashisha. That must be what they're trying to do. It's a repetition of the verb shakab, and mishkab is just a repetition of that. And that's what the Bible does. It just has random words thrown in there for no reason. There's no reason there. They just kind of messed it up a little bit, and they meant it to be this other thing. It should have been shakab, shakab, but, you know, it's shakab, mishkab, and that's fine. We're just going to make mishkab a verb. Makes sense? Not at all. Not at all. This scholarship never took into account the information I will be presenting here. All right, a few additional points. For a further example of the double verb meaning of Leviticus 18:22 is incorrect, is shown by the fact that the double verb is like are next to each other, you know. So shakab, mishkab was like a double verb in their eyes. But the double verb in the punitive corollary, Leviticus 20:13, is gone. There's other words in the way of the double verb. In fact, there's 2 words, eth zakar, in the middle of shakab and mishkab right here, see? And you can actually see it right here too. Shakab, eth zakar, mishkab, ashisha. Shakab, lying down, eth, with, zakar, a male or a man. Mishkabe is not as he lies, it's in the bed of a woman, or in the bedding place of a woman. Right? I'm going to show you that the actual meaning they intended for mishkab in this sense is going to be something more like the bedding places. Right? Alright, furthermore, we can see in other verses in Leviticus 18 that when God wishes to specifically name a sexual act as wrong, he uses very specific language. In the very next passage, after 1822, when naming sex with an animal as sinful, the specific words used are shekobeth, which means copulation. Right here, carnally, they translated it as carnally, but it can also mean copulation, shekobeth. And then there's a rabbah right here, and to mate with, right? And actually to lie down, but has an origin, primitive root of to squat or lie down, specifically in copulations. So those two words both have specific meanings of copulation. And then you see in other parts in Leviticus 18 where when they're saying not to uncover the nakedness of your different various relatives. That's a pretty specific way of putting that, not to uncover their nakedness. Everybody knows what that means. And that's not just sexual, that could also be like not looking at them naked at all. And then you see things like where it says not to lay carnally with your neighbor's wife. It's a very specific word that they use. Only in Leviticus 18:22 is this vague double verb meaning where they changed the noun into a verb to fit the meaning they wanted it to mean. Okay, so let's keep going here. Again, shekab, mishkab, or shisha. Shekab's the verb, which means to lie down. Mishkab's the noun, which means bed or couch. A shisha is a noun, which means a woman or a wife. Right, we've gone over that. Mishkab. This is what it looks like in Hebrew, right here. Hebrew's read right to left. Okay? It's a noun, yet it's intentionally translated as a verb or an adverb, as in an act of lying down, in only 4 instances. Meant to say 4 instances. It's 7 verses. Judges 21:11, Numbers 31:17, 18, and 35, and Leviticus 18:22, Leviticus 20:13. Also Judges 21:12, the very next verse after this one. And we're going to be going over all of those. Every other instance uses mishkab as a noun or adjective to mean a place of lying down, or a bed or couch. And actually, look, we'll go back here. This is taken from the Hebrew-Greek Interlinear Bible, right? This is mishkab. Look at all the instances. How many times it's been translated as bed, 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 bedroom, bed, bedroom, bedroom. Only intimately a few times. And we're going to go over those versions where they say intimately or as he lies. You see, these are the versions we're going to be going over. But all the rest of them, bed, 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 couch, bed, bed. Because it's a bed, because it's a noun. Right? Okay. So, this brings us to Yod. Yod is a Hebrew letter, the Y in the Tetragrammaton. Yod He Vav He. I am that I am. Yod looks like this. Added at the end of mishkab, right here, it'll be right there. Looks like that, alright? A yod added at the end of a Hebrew noun can change it to an adjective in possessive form. In the case of a mishkab, it turns it into a possessive plural construct noun. The bedding places, right? Of the 46 occurrences of mishkab in the Bible, a yod has only been added at the end of 3 verses, 3 instances of mishkab. Those 3 instances are Genesis 49:4, Leviticus 18:22, and Leviticus 20:13. So Genesis 49:4 has a lot. It's going to tell us a lot about the intent and meaning of what Leviticus 18:22 is actually meant, because it's the first time and the only time, other than these two, that we find this yod. And this yod creates a possessive plural form of mishkabe, connecting it to the word afterwards, right? Let's look at 49:4. I highlighted where Genesis 49:4 has mentioned mishkab in this form as a plural construct, Genesis 49:4. All right, you can see it, it's got the yod right there. And Genesis 49:4 is also the first time, and that it has the meaning of a place of copulation. That in Genesis 49:4, that's the meaning of this particular version and how it's meant within the context, right? So, and keep in mind, this is the first time we see yod at the end, denoting it as a possessive plural construct noun, right? Uncontrolled as the waters, you shall not excel, because you went to my bed. You went up to the bed of your father, and you defiled it. You got on my couch. Right? So this is about Reuben, Jacob's son. And Reuben has defiled his father's bed, his mishkabe abba. Alright? He is his father's bed. What's the context of that? Well, in Genesis 35:21, it's a little after Israel has, a little after Jacob has been named Israel, and is, he was named Israel after his wrestling with God. Israel has moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. Jacob had 12 sons. Alright, so what has Reuben done? He's defiled his father's sexual domain by sleeping with his father's concubine. This would be probably as bad as like sleeping with your stepmom or something like that, I guess in biblical terms. Reuben has slept with his father's. So, what has he defiled? His father's sexual domains, right? His places of copulation. That would mean all the women that he sleeps with, his wife, they would all fall under his sexual domain. This could also be called his father's bedchambers. So mishkab abba, right? Right here, that would mean mishkab ishisha references a woman's sexual domain, or woman's bedchambers, right? And who falls into a woman's bedchambers generally? It would be men, or women they would be engaged to. In this instance, it would refer to men that are married to this woman that is being referenced here. So I actually believe in this instance of Ashisha, where Ashisha can be translated as woman or wife, that Mishkab Ashisha is actually the bedchambers of a wife, or the sexual domains of a wife. That's how it should be translated. Okay. Taking a little sidebar real quick, let's look at Numbers 31:17. This is one of the other verses that we see Mishkab being used as a as a verb, right? And therefore kill every male among the little ones, and every woman who is known a man by lying with him. Kill. Now, notice the letter at the beginning of Mishkab right here. They translated this as a verb, by lying. Now, first of all, where's the double verb that allows them to say that this is lying in the lyings of? Because that was the whole basis in the early parts of the Bible when they were translating Leviticus and all that. That was the whole basis for them saying, you know, it's the lying downs of the lying downs is because it's right next to each other, and it's a double verb, and that's why mishkab is not a noun, it's a verb. Well, where's shakab? I don't see any shakab to indicate a double verb. The only thing we have here is yodat, which is who has known, right? Known. Who has been known. All right. The verb yada, translated as who has known, does mean to know. It ends with a tav, which feminizes the verb. Which feminizes the whole thing. And also note that there is no verb like ishkab, like I said, to indicate the Hebrew double verb translation, right? So this has to be a noun. This has to be translated as a noun. There's no reason to translate it as a verb. There's no basis for it. No logical basis for it in Hebrew to translate this noun as a verb. So if we fix the translation, we get, and therefore kill every male among the little ones, and every woman who has been known in the bed of a man. Kill. Makes sense. It makes perfect sense, actually. It really does. And there's no need to have this other verb translation of this noun that these biblical scholars have been doing to create this idea of God hating homosexuality, right? All right, so let's look at Judges 21:11. This is the last verse where we find mishkab translated as a verb. Notice again, no shakab to indicate the double verb theory of shakab, mishkab. You see that again. And once again, this verb is translated as, they translated the verb yada in this case as by man, which is not really what it means. It's known, to know. And then here, mishkab, who has known intimately. That's what they translated that as. Ridiculous. But look at the end of mishkab right here. It has a hyphen at the end. Now, a hyphen in Hebrew acts the same way as like a hyphen in English. It'll create a new word out of mishkab zakar right here. Mishkab zakar. Alright? So what's this new word that it's creating? It's not a verb right here. Who is known intimately, a man. This new word would be something more like, and this is the thing that you shall do. This is how it should be translated. And this is the thing that you shall do. Every male and every woman who has been known in the bed of a man, you shall utterly destroy. But really, I think it could be who has been known in the bedding chambers of a man. It's some sort of new word, you know, but we don't know exactly how that word would be put in English. There's no exact corollary for that new word that's been created. But it's something close to that. All right. This finally gets us to Leviticus 18:22. What should it actually mean? What is it trying to entail? Let's put our new translation to work. Thou shalt not lie with a male in the bedchambers of a woman. It's an abomination. Thou shalt not lie with a male who is in the sexual domains of a woman. It's an abomination. That would be any man like who's dating a woman, any man who is engaged to a woman, any man who's married to a woman. But I think that probably the most accurate, I think the one that works the best, is actually that Ashisha should be married. Ashisha should be translated as wife in this instance. And what they're trying to say is that with a man a man shall not lie in the bedchambers of his wife. It is an abomination. Or with a man thou shalt not lie in the bedchambers of his wife. It's an abomination. Or in his wife's bedchambers. Right? So what is Leviticus 18:22 actually saying is prohibited? It's prohibiting adultery between two men. Because I'm sure at the time, because the context of Leviticus 18 is that the Hebrews are about to go into the land of the Canaans, and they have to differentiate themselves from the Canaanites that they're about to go and take this land from. And they had to differentiate themselves from the Egyptians from where they left. So God tells Moses to give them this long list of all these things that they shouldn't do, because these are the things that these people in Canaan did and the people in Egypt did that defiled them. And this land spat them out, right? So, in this instance, it's saying adultery between two men is still adultery. And if you are an unmarried man or a married man, and you sleep with another married man, it's still adultery. It doesn't say anything about prohibiting homosexuality. And in fact, there's no references anywhere in the Bible about prohibiting actual marriage between men. The conceptions of Christian marriage are entirely based around, readings of Genesis and things of that nature, and certain things that Jesus said. But Jesus was a man who understood the heart, understood God, God's love. Now, what is all this really? All this is a stumbling block. That's always what it's been. And God puts stumbling blocks, and he says that actually. Jesus says that God puts stumbling blocks out on purpose. Stumbling blocks for people who require justification through the law, to believe that they're better. And what Jesus said is that there is no justification through the law, because nobody's righteous. And it's only through faith that we're justified. It's through the faith and love of Christ, and devoting ourselves entirely, crucifying ourselves on the cross with Christ, and replacing our will with Christ's. And that's truly what he's talking about. It's a lot closer to it. These are stumbling blocks put out there to intentionally trip people up, to show other people that this is not God, so that the people who do know God would know exactly who doesn't know God. But I believe that this is the time for these stumbling blocks to be taken down. And I believe this has been shown, not just to me, but other people too. I've seen other readings as well that indicate this. Alright? Why does this matter so much? Because Leviticus 18:22, Leviticus 20:13 are the only two undeniable clauses that say that homosexuality is wrong in the concept of the religious right. And all the other clauses are based on the Leviticus text interpretations, or on some very loose interpretations of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And almost all the New Testament passages that reference homosexuality actually are referencing sodomy, the sin of Sodom. And the sin of Sodom was not an unkind and unloving nature to their, or as the sin of Sodom was, rather, an unkind and unloving nature to their fellow human beings. That was their sin. They were horrible, mean, uncaring, hateful, spiteful. When they met strangers, they wanted to rob them and murder them and defile them and rape them. It didn't matter who they were. So it's not about them being homosexual. The story of Sodom is not about homosexuality, and only briefly mentions the possible act of some homosexual rape as a way of displaying how cruel and unhospitable the nature of the Sodomites is. You see, I believe the Leviticus verses have been intentionally mistranslated by ignorance to control the human heart and spirit, and to be a stumbling block to those who require salvation through the law, and not salvation through Christ. And I believe it's time to push these stumbling blocks aside, and if people are willing to see the truth in this. I thank you for listening to this, and I hope I get to talk to you if at all. If you have any questions, you can email me at you can email me at koigei@gmail.com. Thank you very much.